Good evening. I think you guys have a copy of the information that I forwarded. The first thing I wanted to go over was just the funding recap of the project. One thing that's very different about this state of good repair project for replacing or rehabbing the Rayon Bridge is the fact that up front on this project there is currently $10.2 million that is being used. That's right out of the gate. This project was able to get started with preliminary engineering, and you all need to know that that's pretty extraordinary.
It is.
Normally when you make an application for funding to look at addressing a structure, you're generally looking at about 6 years of allocations in order to make that happen, and in this particular case to have that much money up front to be able to do something is really incredible. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, in December of 2020 the city made an application for a reapplication of state of good repair funds. In June of last year, the Commonwealth Transportation Board approved the budget and the funding, real dollars of almost $10.3 million that was available upon the CTB's authorization. Followed by, there's about $3.7 million in future funds that will occur out through 2027. The difference for the type of project that we're talking about, since the state has moved to smart scale and state of good repair application and approval process, the dollar value that you get approved for, that a little over $14 million, becomes the project budget, which means that everything that happens in order to move forward with this project has to be contained within that dollar value. So what originally starts off as the project estimate then becomes the approved project budget. So your budget for this project is like I said, a little over $14 million. Where we are now with the project, in September of last year we had an introduction and kind of kickoff meeting to introduce all the players and discuss a little bit of the scope and dollar values available, talk about how our engineering resources are going to be used. And in this process, I know people have a lot of questions tonight, but the state of good repair process requires that all alignment options be evaluated. So rehabilitation has got to be considered, whether or not there's the opportunity for realignment, whether or not it's replacing a structure in the exact location that it is now. Everything has to be evaluated because part of this process requires that the scope has to be based has to be established to rehab, reconstruct, or replace deficient elements in the most practical and cost-effective manner. So the other important factor in this is that the alternative that's chosen has to match the funding that's available. The state of good repair funds are also not intended to pay for increases of traffic capacity of a bridge. So what we'd be looking at, you have a 2-lane structure, we would go back with a 2-lane structure. And by increased capacity, that generally means like you wouldn't be throwing in an additional lane for like turn lanes or something like that. You'd be looking at two vehicular lanes. Our projects are typically separated into 3 different phases. The first phase that we have is preliminary engineering, then we have a right-of-way phase, and we have a construction phase. In the preliminary engineering phase, which runs from October of 2021 to August of 2026, there are a lot of things that go on. And one right now is the analysis process that Timmons is doing, and Timmons is subbed through the department to do. I understand you guys are familiar with their work, and they are the ones that are working on the alternative design analysis. So that's going to be going on, and hopefully by early spring of this year we'll be having a scoping meeting. And what the scoping meeting does is it takes the information that they have and the analysis that they've done, and helps to determine which one of those options we need to be pursuing. From there, we'll have a preliminary field inspection, and we hope to then go to, once that design choice has been selected, then we would go to a public hearing. And what the public hearing does is it takes about plans that are 30% complete and allows us to go out, show what the proposal is to the community that's involved, and give them an opportunity to comment and give us feedback on what that design is and potential impacts. From that standpoint, all of the comments that we get, we will go back and reevaluate the plans and see if there's a way that we can incorporate that feedback into the plans. Then we go to design approval, a field inspection, and then a pre-advertisement conference. And just to let you all know that just because we're administering the project on behalf of the city, you all will be very involved in all phases of this project. We're doing it for you. It's going to be turned over for you when it's completed. And so we want to make sure that, again, within the limits that the State of Good Repair program allows us, we want to incorporate comments and feedback that you and the community have. Then the next phase is right-of-way, and right-of-way runs from April of 2025 until April of 2026. And none of this can begin until we actually have an alternative for the bridge in place, so that we know what. Right now it's just analysis. There's no point in having a conversation with people because it's a lot of speculation at this point. So once we actually move into that phase, and like I said, April of 2025, then we would begin negotiations for any right-of-way that would be necessary. There might be utility relocations. There's a lot of things that fall in there. And there are portions of right-of-way and preliminary engineering that will occur concurrently. So when we get to the 30% plans, and once we incorporate all the comments back from the community and comments that you all have, from that point, we would be moving forward and starting in on right-of-way negotiations and utility relocations at that point. And then in April of 2026, we look forward to moving into construction. And if you'll notice, there were future funds of $3.7 million that don't occur until out through fiscal year 2027. Because so much of those funds are available up front, and because the duration, generally for bridge construction, we're looking at least a full year, potentially 18 months. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. When you get, the funding allocation that you get, it's all right if that last funding allocation occurs after it's gone out to construction, if it's low, if it's a certain percentage low enough that you can be accumulating funds as the project is being constructed. So in this case, since the balance of funds that you have left to be allocated is only $3.7 million, and the way that it falls in the 6-year plan, that's fine. So we hope to have everything completed by December of 2027. We are looking to advertise in April of 2026. It usually takes a couple of months to go through everything, all the bids and everything when they come in, so we would be looking at an anticipated award date of July of 2026. And as I said, that we'll continue to make updates to council and the public when we reach certain milestones as we get close, and certainly in any instances where we need to get public feedback. And we'll be looking to you all to assist with good space to do public hearing. And I will certainly take any questions that you all have. I'm not sure there's things I can answer this evening, but I'll do my best.
3 years sounds like a long ways off, but with all the planning activities for a major piece of infrastructure like that, it's occurring faster than you think. We And to Ms. Hammond's point, we've had 3 very productive meetings with VDOT so far, and they've awarded their design contract, and the subcontracts have been awarded. So it's really the analysis phase, and obviously a lot goes into the preliminary engineering, so that then when you go to construction, it's usually smooth sailing. So just grateful that the state gave us as much funding as they did up front so that we could get it into gear and not worry about funding in phases, because the Commonwealth Transportation Board used to actually fund in phases, where you might just get your preliminary engineering funded, then your right-of-way funded, and then your construction funded. So you could have a project that it would take over 6 years to complete because you're waiting on piecemeal funding. So at least we get to hit the ground running, which is very exciting.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.